Hey friends! Today we have a very interesting episode. We will talk about how premium houses are built in the US and comparing that to a similar house built in Russia. We'll go over the pros and cons, spot the differences, and let you decide which approach is cooler. Let's go! Today we're comparing two houses. The first one is located near Moscow and was a full-scale renovation. The total area of this house is 9687 square foot, and the estimated value is about $8 million. Interestingly, this house was built for sale, meaning there wasn't a specific client for whom it was all done. And we found an identical house, also for sale, at the same price and size in New York and filmed it for you. It is in East Hampton, a super high-end area known for its modern homes. I think it's going to be interesting to explore how the design was thought through, what the architectural vision was, and how solid the construction is, how it's done in America, and what approach exists in Russia towards premium real estate. I think I can share some interesting insights because we build in both countries. We have experience with premium homes near Moscow and in the US. So let's break down the pros and cons, and maybe we'll even put together a comparison table by the end to see how these two countries differ and what advantages and disadvantages we can draw from this video. The first and probably most important thing is the location. When discussing it, realtors often prioritize it because the cost of land frequently determines the final price of a house. That's why East Hampton is such an ideal location. Historically, it's been a place where very wealthy people settle. In New York, taking a helicopter is a convenient way to get to the city, especially since this place is quite far from Manhattan. Thanks to this, there's none of that urban hustle and bustle here, but all the premium services are available. That's why it's a popular choice for both Americans and international buyers looking for real estate in the New York area. One cool thing in the US is that every town has its own set of rules about what kind of houses can be built and which ones can't. So, for example, here you can't really have those perfect, beautiful lawns that Americans are so fond of. It's more about preserving the soil exactly as it was in its untouched natural state under the forest. And trees can't be cut down unless it's for a house. In essence, when we were driving here, we were just traveling through a forest where large plots have been carved out. Somewhere on these plots, houses are hidden. And right now, for example, I'm on the terrace, which is slightly elevated above the driveway, and from here, there's a very beautiful view of this forest. I really like it, and it's such a place of unity where this house is located. Speaking of the Moscow region, and specifically about the house designed there, it's also quite close to the city. You can still get there in a reasonable amount of time. I guess the main difference is really the village itself. That is, in the Moscow region, people are still accustomed to living in such gated communities where there is a high fence and their own security. The plots are a bit smaller because of this, and they are closer together, but since you have good neighbors, they probably have nice houses too, so it's not a problem, just a characteristic, let's say. In short, the pros and cons of East Hampton are about nature, large plots, and the beauty of the surroundings, particularly the natural beauty. In Russia, it's about safety, good neighbors, and proximity to the city. Let's move on. The second point is the layout solutions. Actually, if we compare these two houses, it's clear they're pretty similar when it comes to how the spaces are organized. In principle, it should be noted that the American house was designed by an Italian, which is why there are quite a few European features here. That's probably why it looks very similar to Russian project. There's a small office at the entrance where you can immediately come with a guest. If you need to discuss something work-related and it's not necessary to bring them along.
This is also not yet a living room. There are two chairs here, and in principle, if a friend comes over and you need to quickly discuss something, you don't take them straight to the living room. You can sit here, sort out some of your issues, and in general, he's walking around there, right? So he doesn't go into that living room and doesn't disturb the members.
I'm currently situated on a little balcony, and there's a very beautiful view from above of this living room area. It always looks very beautiful, perfect for Instagram, and super aesthetic. Here too, there are very beautiful designs with a small balcony or even what you might call a little bridge, because from here you get a view of the kitchen dining area. On this side, there's a staircase creating a sort of glass bridge, which connects the children's bedrooms and the primary bedroom in this section. The only major difference is in the space allocated for staff. Premium houses in the Moscow suburbs typically include separate rooms for staff, a place where, for example, a personal driver can rest, where the nanny sits when she is off duty. I haven't seen such spaces specifically for staff in houses of similar cost in the US. They are found in more expensive houses. Another major difference is the pool. Because of the climate, it's common in Russia to build indoor swimming pools so you can swim comfortably during the winter. In Russian projects, when it comes to a pool, everyone usually compares it to a sports pool 82 feet long where you want to swim. In other words, if you don't swim there, then most likely you won't want to build a pool for yourself. At least that's the basic logic of Russian clients. In fact, here we have the spa area. It's a useful feature, especially when it's close to the kitchen and common area. The highlight of this pool is probably the fact that it has a countercurrent. Now, I'll demonstrate how it works. And essentially, this creates quite a good current, thanks to which you can swim here peacefully. And as you can see, this pool is relatively small. It's about 13 by 16 foot, but thanks to this countercurrent, you can practice swimming here. The American story is still about open pools. I would say it not only depends on the weather, but also on a certain lifestyle. For Americans, a pool is still about parties. It's like in the movies where everyone joyfully jumps into the pool. Look how amazing the infinity pool looks without that border. The way the water just flows over the edge of the area. It looks really cool, especially when the ground level is significantly lower than the water's surface. As you can see, these pools have an extra part called the shallow pool, where the water is only about 8 inches deep. You can place a lounger here and you'll be partially in the water. It seems like a must-have feature for any pool. Another great thing I want to point out is the material used for the waterproofing. You see, the micro-cement on the floor just looks so much better than the usual tiles, especially those blue ones you often see. With the lighting, all of this isn't very cool. The only solution that works for pools is this kind of micro-cement. Because the Italians designed it, the shower's just around the corner, really convenient when you're by the pool. Such a functional detail that will truly be appreciated in the future. Now, let's look at the facades of our houses. Essentially, Russian approach is focused on the facades. It's important to note that only the best materials were used throughout the entire house. When it comes to the overall look, wood is really popular in Russia. It's a material that feels great to the touch and is widely used in Russian projects. A lot of clients love using it, even though it can be a bit tricky to operate. The design itself was inspired by streamline architecture. This is a movement from the early last century characterized by smooth forms. It was a way to bring out the character of the old house, as it was a reconstruction and called for a thoughtful solution. A space that can be updated easily without really changing the original structure.
As you can see, all our corners are rounded. Somewhere we used plaster, but here we have a finish with slats, and these slats also have rounded edges. That's how a modern look of the house was achieved.
The original proportions and shapes of the old architecture were preserved, but the streamlined style was reinterpreted in a fresh way. Modern materials were added, which resulted in this interesting design. Inside the house, the main decorative element is this kind of wooden slat. It's thermo-ash, friends, and it is made very interestingly. Here is a hidden French fastening, very complex.
The complex profile of this thermo ash allowed to create a rounded radius first, and here the back is also made of wood.
And it resulted in a truly high-quality, slow-crafted facade. You can tell the American house was designed by an Italian because, to me, it has a lot of Italian-style details. If you look at the main idea of the house, it's a bright white plaster combined with some traditional stone. Actually, this is a pretty classic combo for Italian homes. Many such houses are being built in America. It is very low maintenance because stone requires no effort at all in its use. Plaster is also quite a durable material. There are some wood accents, but it's pretty basic wood. What I like about this style is the Italian approach, where the entrance isn't really highlighted or obvious. Somewhere you walk along the terrace and enter through the living room, somewhere you get in through the kitchen from the backyard. It's basically so open that it reminds you of southern homes where you walk right in through big panoramic windows and end up straight in the kitchen. And at the same time, it is adapted for the American market. There is still a proper entrance, with a front door, yeah. The design of the house fits well into the forest setting, mostly because of the wooden elements. The stone is well matched to the environment. And those large panoramic windows, I absolutely love them because from the inside they offer a wonderful view of the forest and the nature that is in East Hampton. And speaking of the entrance area, in American homes with classical architecture, there's usually a big emphasis on making it stand out. Kind of like in Russia, where you often see huge, grand front doors. But interestingly, in both houses, there's nothing like that. In the American house, it's because an Italian did it and he made a very modest, understated entrance, probably because in his mind, he still doubts that people will use it. I'd say the house is unconventional by American standards. There is none of that pomp that usually strikes you when you enter an American home. Here we enter a bit from the side. There are no high ceilings. Still, it's quite practical. There's a small office right by the entrance, which is also where the main part of the house begins. In the Russian house, since it was a renovation, adding a second light or anything like that was really difficult. But there's one thing. In Russian homes, it's common to have a stairwell right by the entrance. So when the family comes home, say, the dad heads to the kitchen to drop off the groceries and the kids run straight upstairs to their rooms. A classic scenario, and that's why it's important to have a staircase at the entrance so they can immediately run up without bothering anyone. We enter an interior space. Here, everything is done in a classic style. A huge wardrobe where you can leave your outerwear. And on this side, naturally, there's a walk-through wardrobe area through which we can access the garage. So it's a very convenient setup when you arrive by car. Naturally, in classic style, we also have a staircase to the second floor located near the main entrance with a guest bathroom nearby. These are the basics, compositional layouts, to ensure everything is convenient. In an American house, the staircase is in the center. In my opinion, this is also not a typical solution for Russia. On one hand, it's interesting because you often use this staircase throughout the day and it's located at the geometric center of the house, which is convenient. You don't have to go far to the kitchen or the living room. In other words, it's a logical placement. At the same time, upon entering, it will be quite a distance. If you need to go to the second floor, you'll have to walk a bit. But I think it's an interesting feature because the house is quite large in terms of area. If this staircase were at the entrance in a classic style, it would simply be inconvenient to use. It acts as a kind of core connecting the two floors. And essentially, these distances have been minimized. I wouldn't say it's a bad or perfect solution. It's just that Russians tend to do things a bit differently. Of course, there are also projects where the staircase is designed as a decorative element, basically serving as the centerpiece of the living room. Still, the staircase starts closer to the entrance to make it more convenient to use. When it comes to furniture, I would probably point out two major differences. Americans tend to use brands. Interestingly, they also love Italy, but if we compare Italy with the one that is exported to America and the one that comes to Russia, these are fundamentally different factories, fundamentally different approaches. When talking about certain Italian products, the reference is usually to more refined items. Here, however, everything is enormous. Here and there, I don't know, a sink, just like a 27-inch stove. Well, I think it's at least a 3 feet. Just imagine a built-in refrigerator. It's about 35 inches. That's amazing. It's probably hard to find anything over 60 or 70 on the market here, but it's very convenient. In general, the kitchen in America is a status symbol of the home. The larger the kitchen, the more expensive the house can be sold. In Russia, you often see more unique design choices. Just look at the kitchens, for instance. The Russian project features a golden kitchen made from this unique, shimmering material. In the American house, the kitchen is wooden. Thanks to these unique materials, the value essentially of the interior in our projects is created. So, even though this house is for sale, it still features some unique touches that are characteristic only of this home. A lot of custom furniture is created to ensure it fits perfectly into the design space. Just consider the bathrooms designed for the Russian project. They're all different, each with its own unique layout. That personal touch is what really gives the house its value. So, what's better? Famous brands, expensive and universally recognized, or a unique approach with solutions and interesting materials? Write in the comments, let's discuss together. The next thing I'd like to discuss is what is generally considered the main feature in American and Russian homes, because there is a small difference that I have noticed over the years of designing. In American homes, the living room is the main feature. Families gather here. Americans are very family-oriented people. They often celebrate holidays within the family circle rather than with friends. And so they need a place where they can all come together there. On 3 sofas with all generations just sitting and talking. Very often such living rooms don't even have a TV. There's simply a fireplace area just like in this house. It is in these spaces that high double height ceilings are made. These are the most impressive and spacious areas. This is the heart of the home and the main place where families spend time together. In Russia, this is the dining area. Why do I say that? Because based on the design of our homes, the dining area is the gathering place for people. In other words, when Russians get together with friends, everyone sits down at the table and eats. As a rule, Russian parties are centered around food. Many, of course, may argue with me, but when people subconsciously design and find references for their homes, where is the double height ceiling used in Russian projects? Typically, this is above the dining area. The lights hang on very long pendants, providing focused lighting over the dining group. But this is exactly where the focus is created. And for example, when we enter the house, the first thing we should see from the entrance area is not the living room, but specifically the dining area. When designing in Russia, it's important to consider that with the dining area, there's a choice, either to head to the kitchen or to the living room. And this is a kind of node that connects these 2 spaces. Essentially, it serves as a geometric center, therefore this is the distinction. And actually, this is important because the whole interior layout is based on one question: which space in the house matters most? I briefly touched on the spa area at the beginning of the video, but I'd like to discuss it in more detail. It's worth noting the color scheme of this room. As you can see, it is done in dark tones here. The main light is from this round lamp with a few spots on the sides and some decorative lighting options as well, such as the LED strip below. There are also a few lights that can be turned on separately. Here, we wanted to convey the atmosphere of a private setting. We also have a separate control panel here to manage the curtains, thus creating a certain privacy. This kind of mood is best suited for such types of spaces. Of course, no spa area is complete without a steam room. As you can see, this one is quite small, family-sized, yet it is quite functional, with an interesting stone stove that you can pour water over. And, of course, a bathroom. A small bathroom, but also interestingly designed in such dark colors, so that the interior part of the spa block transitions into this space. The spa facilities in Russian projects are generally much more developed. There is a sauna and usually a hammam. All of this is done using very sophisticated technologies. In other words, it's much more complex than just installing an electric stove. If we specifically compare the 2 projects, since both houses were built for sale, there's space left for customization in both the Russian and American homes. So, the client can adapt it later to fit their needs. In other words, there are areas that are already appearing in premium homes, such as essential movie theaters. These are large spaces where you can set up a billiard table or poker. Usually this kind of potential space is left in the basement when houses are built for sale, since no one really knows what other needs will have to be met for clients who purchase premium real estate. When comparing the interior finishes of the 2 projects, you often see a standard approach in American homes, when all the walls are simply painted white and the variety comes exclusively from the decor. They start with a simple paint job and the real finishing work gets done professionally afterward. This kind of art, these kinds of paintings are plentiful and they truly adorn walls, making them easy to purchase. In Russia, you just can't find artwork like this. Yeah, most artists focus more on painting pictures, rather than creating pieces that complement interior spaces. This is understandable. It's more ambitious, but finding just some background items can be a huge challenge. In Russia, the approach is different. Once again, we are talking about materials, emphasizing that they should be expensive in terms of finish. In Russia, veneered walls with lighting are quite common, and decorative elements are often included, like those seen in the lobby, where we create a relief on the wall with plaster. It significantly increases the value of this square feet.
You can't just leave the walls plain white. Here there's a subtle nod, not just to Art Deco, but maybe even to classicism, although this structure can't be called classical in any way. It is an exceptionally modern house, but damn, look at that stucco. So, you see genuine plaster molding, just in its modern execution? And there is a certain common idea here. For example, on the second level, these little cylinders on the floor are very closely packed together. Then there is a gradual thinning out. That is, they become 3, and then they transition into 1. All these levels, they are completely repeated on all the walls in the interior, right? So, there is a certain common idea that runs as a common thread through this entire space. Look at how the molding transitions into the hidden baseboard, right? Into such a shadow joint. The floor accordingly slightly extends under the wall. And, for example, it's rare for designers to get this joint right, where the door is almost flush with the shadow gap, right? Usually, they don't quite align. In the Russian project, everything is done in a single line. Both on the ceiling and on the floor there are these shadow profiles, and it looks very beautiful. On this side the finish is veneer. The veneered finish seamlessly integrates the doors.
And these are such stationary things that are difficult to remove, but which, together with a unique approach to interior design, look organic, and the client who will come to this house will not want to change it. American homes are more about the idea that a client can arrive, find something they don't like, and hang something of their own. They can even repaint a wall, which is usually not done and comes as quite a shock. But these are the two basic different approaches, where in America everything is refined and enriched with decor, while in Russia this happens mostly at the finishing stage, with variety coming from the choice of materials. When it comes to living rooms, there is a fundamental difference between the American and Russian approaches. Americans have a basic rule that all beds should be positioned against a solid wall because a television might potentially be placed there. There is always electrical wiring planned for it. Depending on the client, they will decide whether it will be only in the primary or also in the kids' rooms. But this space needs to be planned for. In Russian projects, 99% of clients want a view of nature. Opposite this bed, we have this panoramic window with a jumbo package. Here, in my opinion, this window is 26 feet wide, truly enormous, like the largest television in the world through which you can see the forest. This is all enhanced by the fact that there are no additional window frame supports or any heavy profiles of this window, which could obstruct the perception of such a beautiful aesthetic visible from the window. In American homes, fireplaces are also very popular, and they are almost always used in primary bedrooms of premium homes. It's a cool thing because they don't use wood-burning boilers. They're mostly gas or electric, which is much more practical. So you press the button and it lit up. If we're talking about a gas fireplace, it's not an artificial one where there's a simulation of burning. The real flame, the real warmth comes from it, yet it requires no maintenance. From this perspective, it's always nice to have a fireplace. We are in the primary bedroom, and you can still place these fireplaces in 3 or 4 more spots. In other words, the more fireplaces, the higher the value of an American home. Russians do have a fireplace, and typically there's only one located in the living room. It's a real wood-burning fireplace because for a Russian, the process itself is important. Going to the wood pile for firewood, bringing back an armful, tossing it in, then cleaning everything up. There's a certain atmosphere to it as well. A very beautiful solution that unites these two functional areas while aesthetically enhancing the fireplace space. Here we have a large fireplace with panoramic glass on 3 sides. This material here allowed us to create something specifically fireproof because it's glass actually, and above it, believe it or not, it's large format porcelain stoneware. As you can see, it perfectly matches our veneered panels, and at first glance, it's hardly noticeable that it's a different material. At the same time, it is completely safe and non-flammable. In summary, in American homes, the more fireplaces there are, the more valuable the house is. For Russians, it's more of an element, let's say, to light up for Christmas, to create a cozy vibe. It's not used all the time, but the whole approach feels more like a kind of ceremony, rather than just admiring the flame by pressing a button. Regarding bathrooms, it's worth mentioning that in this project, every bathroom and room is designed to be at least somewhat unique. Even the bathrooms by the bedrooms have their own style. Here, for instance, the tiles add a special touch. Some rooms have red tiles, others blue, and some green. That way you never get lost and each room feels unique. In the middle of the room, there's an accent piece that connects both areas. This was a reconstruction, so the floor height here is completely different. And we thought for a long time about what idea could unite and play this all out. We found a very cool solution where on one side we have a sink with 2 faucets, which are also quite interestingly positioned. And on this side there is a freestanding bathtub, which is also concealed within this red stone box. Here, mirrors are positioned on a swivel mechanism. These are convenient to use, and of course, what beautiful bathroom doesn't have natural light? As you can see, there's a specially extended windowsill here, with its wide part, so that beautiful decor can be placed. Overall, a very beautiful space. I really love it because of this original solution with the red stone, which makes it truly unique. The way the space is organized in here is interesting too. In America, it's more about speed. Houses are built much faster there than in Russia because the most important thing in investments is the payback period. If it takes 5 years to build, no one will want to invest in it anymore. So usually everything there is standard and typical. Americans like to make their bathrooms more high-tech. For example, there's almost always a Toto toilet that opens automatically when you enter the room. A spacious bathroom with a stunning bathtub, 2 sinks, and plenty of space between them. There's also a sliding door and of course a shower. But what should be noted is that this is not just a shower. Many homebuyers need to install a shelf like this, where an elderly person can sit and shower themselves, because it's difficult for them to stand. And with these kinds of features, these expensive brands, the value of an American-style bathroom is created. Additionally, I wanted to discuss the terraces in the primary bedrooms of these projects. They truly belong in premium homes. They must be isolated, private, and we can clearly see this in both the first and second examples. There is such a completely secluded corner where we can place anything from a jacuzzi, and it will be completely hidden from all neighbors and even from the residents of this house, because here is a completely enclosed corner on 3 sides with a small opening where a table with chairs could be placed in the future, and you can, for example, having breakfast or drinking coffee in the morning while admiring your property or watching the children sleeping in the next room. In the American project, the terrace is also very interestingly designed, positioned slightly around the corner from the main facade of the house. Let's see how it's done here. Let's walk a little into this part and look at the private terrace. I really like that the terrace is located just around the corner of the house here. You can't see what's happening on your property. Here, you're in a more intimate setting in the finish, as you can see. The simplest clapboard is used. You see, it hasn't been treated with anything. I think it will become gray over time and will look very organic with this house. In conclusion, it's hard to say that one house is better or worse. They're quite similar overall, done in the same style with the same approach. Be sure to write in the comments about the little things and differences that are only visible in the details, which features you liked or what other differences you know. It will be interesting to read. Maybe we'll do a whole episode just on the comments. To wrap it up, I would say it's really great that premium homes today are typically designed with a focus on the surroundings. In both the first and second cases, we see that a large amount of glazing has been used. It all has panoramic views overlooking either beautiful landscapes or its own grounds with a pool. Essentially, you're basically in nature, and it's the same in Russia, where panoramic windows are used all around, wherever they can be planned and naturally fit. This reflects the trend toward natural minimalism. It is currently gaining a lot of popularity. This is probably the direction in which we work and create 90% of our architecture. So if you also want to talk about it in more detail, be sure to write. Well, today I say goodbye to you. I hope you liked both houses. See you next time. Bye-bye.